Certainly their alarms were not without a motive, besides the menacing attitude of the foreign powers. The depredations in the West began again, and at the same time bands of armed rebels overran the environs of Brussels, of Tirlemont, and of Luxembourg. They granted to the executive power all it demanded: the tax upon the patents, the roads, the gates, the windows, and upon tobacco. And octroi, or city gates, were accepted as soon as proposed. But it too often happens that patriotic enthusiasm does not know how to be moderate, and they passed a law of banishment with as much coolness as a financial law. They would at any price add to the power of the government. They put in force the laws against emigration. At length, the opposition, that is to say the constitutional and Jacobin, voted for some days with the most devoted partisans of the Directory. The Jacobins endeavored, even at the end of the month, to profit by the occasion. Briot prepared, in the name of the Commission, to assimilate the emigrants with the priests condemned to transportation who concealed themselves or who entered France. They commanded them to present themselves directly to submit to the penalty. It was a continuation of the new law against those who were vanquished in Fructidor. Briot gave these motives for the proposition of death. Do you doubt, said he, of the coalition of the refractory priests with the royalists and the emigrants? Cast your eyes upon the 9 united departments at this moment torn and bleeding. Do they not cry out to you that it is the priests who have kindled the fire of rebellion and who want to call the English? Do you not hear the tocsin resound in the country? Its mournful sound announces that the blood of Frenchmen flows, shed by the hands of Frenchmen. The defenders of the country are murdered, and the unfortunate cultivators fall beneath their blows, while the cowardly author of those troubles, with hands uplifted to heaven, prays that blood may still flow, provided that he may be preserved to create new crimes? Briot, an ardent mind and incorruptible patriot, forgot that the persecuted priest, pursued even to the bottom of his conscience, was not the author, but the victim of our troubles. He did not perceive that in rendering the persecution more cruel, they augmented those troubles which they desired to appease. His proposition was adjourned, but they ordered the impression of his discourse in 3 copies. Thus, upon the eve of a new coalition, our march became always more uncertain. In Vendémiaire, we refused to the government the nomination of some insignificant employments. In Brumaire, we abandoned to them without remorse the fate of the transported. We went alternately from an outrageous defiance to an unlimited confidence. Public opinion, tossed from side to side, retired from us. The faults altogether of the administrative measures, the false direction, and the irresolution of the legislative measures carried away step by step the directorial republic towards a state of incurable languor. Scarcely arrived at her 4th year, she had already the first features of decrepitude. Month of Fructidor, and Nouveau, year 7, from the 27th of November, 1798 to the 21st of January, 1799. 2 Russian fleets in the Mediterranean, censure of the newspapers. 1. The powers. The diplomatic influence of Sieyès maintained always the court of Prussia in neutrality. The other great powers of the continent had finished their preparations but had not yet declared themselves. But they gave the signal to Naples and Turin. The king of Naples, encouraged by the number of soldiers that he enrolled and by the renown of General Mack, dared to commence hostilities. He summoned all the French to quit the Roman states, republicanized and usurped since the peace of Campo Formio, and never acknowledged by his Sicilian majesty, nor by his august ally, the emperor and king. The innovations made at Milan by our ambassadors were represented in several writings of the civilians in Naples as violating the state of peace. Upon the French replying in the negative, the Roman states were invaded by all the Neapolitan bands. Championnet evacuated momentarily Rome, where he left a strong garrison at the castle of St. Angelo. He retired into the Apennines to concentrate a few forces that he had at his disposal. He let Mack engage heedlessly, but separately, his numerous columns, and drove the aggressing monarch to the limits of his kingdom that he was not destined long to keep. At the same moment that the great army of Mack retired in disorder, a Neapolitan division imported by an English fleet landed at Leghorn, and the Grand Duke of Tuscany protested diplomatically or sincerely against it. As for the King of Sardinia, he had not commenced hostilities, but the Austrians, master of the Grisons Lakes, were spread to the limits, even in Piedmont, whose evil dispositions began to show themselves openly by the frequent murders of our isolated soldiers. Our safety in the south of Italy exacted that they should secure the Alps, and the Directory proposed to us in the same message to declare war against the kings of Naples and Sardinia, whom they equally accused of having broken the peace. That double declaration united all the votes. We were all of us tired with so long an uncertainty. We were not long in facilitating ourselves upon our success. Upon learning that the two dethroned kings had taken refuge in the islands of Sicily and Sardinia, the Russian vessels preceded the hostilities of Suvorov. A fleet of that nation, united with the English, blockaded the coast of Holland, while another, united with the Turks, attacked the Venetian Isles that had become French. Sirigo and Zante were taken. Corfu repulsed all the efforts of the Turkish-Russian fleet. The great statesman who then presided over the destinies of England, while he allied his flag with that of Russia, must have meditated more than once upon the simultaneous and double apparition of two Muscovite fleets in the seas of Holland and Greece. Pitt could not, without doubt, observe that phenomenon without anxiety for the future. What would he say? What would he do? If he could see the British influence annulled at Constantinople and the Tsar dominating over the Bosphorus and excluding the British vessels from the Black Sea,